Welcome to Tides of Shadow, navigating larger black moon cycles that shape culture and consciousness. So I'm Heron Michelle. So is everybody in the right place where you meant to be? If not, you can escape now. Glad to see you all here. Thank you for attending. Come on in. Find us. We got lots of spots up here, and there's going to be a lot of information dense slides. So if you want to see it up close, come on up. You may record any of that. Just all the standard courtesies. Don't post it online without crediting me or whatever. I did post the PDF slideshow to the SCED. Whatever, shed, I don't know how you say that. Anyway, to the thing so you can download it. Shed, and the shed. This is information, this is the first time I'm presenting this, so I should probably just start with the thank you for putting up with the fact that this is the first time I have presented this out loud and in public. It is from a new book that will be hopefully released by Llewellyn before we get back here next year. I have pulled some information from chapter 10 that I didn't get to go too far in depth with in the book because it's not really the subject of the book. It's in the background sort of information, but I wanted to expound on it here. And I'm very happy to do that here first because my entire concept for this book changed. Okay, let me just back up a minute. 8 years ago, Llewellyn contacted me and asked me to write them a book about moon magic. And I said, sure, I know all about that. I can write you a book about moon magic. And I got started, and in my research, originally, I picked up this book by Ivo Dominguez, which I have a giant stack of at the booth. My booth, I run the Sojo book booth. That's me over there also. So you can find me in the vendor room at the Sojo book booth.
The other reason I'm broke.
The other reason why his chair was broke. This is his Practical Astrology for Witches and Pagans. And I read it, and after I met him at a Mystic South, I bought it, and I read it, and it changed every single thing about the way I perceive the cosmos and lunar magic and every other blessed thing in my practice, which means that I scrapped the entire first outline and started over. There's a reason why it took 8 years to turn that sucker in, and so I want to hype this. So it's important to me, I think, that I premiere it here because, well, Ivo, we can blame Ivo for all this, and thank him. And I told him that last night. I was like, my opening joke is we're going to blame you for everything that's about to happen. Anyway, what I'm talking about today would not be considered introduction to lunar anything. And so if this is your first day thinking about it, I'm sorry. I'm going to go very quickly through the introductory things and get very quickly into more of an intermediate look at how to work with larger lunar tides and how it all fits together according to astrology. Also, if you didn't know already, the first book that I did in this series is out and here for the last 5 years. This is Elemental Witchcraft, and it lays the foundation for all of this also. And then Lunar picks right up where this left off and goes more deeply just into the moon stuff, whereas this is sort of everything and elemental. Well, I got a lot of my former students in here. I'm very happy to see you all here. And if anyone at the end of this thinks, gosh, I'd like to know more about how all that goes together, I do have an online course. Several of the people in this room have finished it, and I have flyers about that if you'd like to do that. We're signing folks up now to start again for the next wheel. So if any of this looks appealing, we can go further with that. Okay. Oh, that's basically everything I just said. Hey, look at there. So coming spring of 2027 should be the new book before we get back here next year. All right, so this is going to be an exploration of lunar tides from the perspective of astrology. That is the foundation of basically everything in Western esoteric philosophy, which is the foundation of pretty much every freaking thing that's going on at this conference this weekend. It is the foundation that we derive from Hermetic philosophy, which is what informed astrology in the West, tarot cards, Kabbalah, our idea of the three worlds model, our idea of divinity inherent within nature. I mean, it really is a foundational everything. So we're just going to come at it from the astrology point of view. I am not an astrologer, but I have had, thank goodness for Eva, because I had to learn enough to be able to do my Hermetic practice. All of this is kind of a Hermetic witchcraft vibe. So part of what I'm going to do today is define why effective magical timing flows by natural cycles rather than man-made civil calendars. There's kind of a divide within the witchery, within the pagandom, and it is not our fault. It's because there's some inaccurate information going around that gets picked up, which gets TikTokified, which gets, where people will be like, oh, it's the blue moon because there's 2 moons in May. I'm here to tell you the cosmos does not give 2 shits about a Roman calendar. It is not how energy flows. No one should care. And I could prove to you, and I do in the book, why that view of what makes something an auspicious special moon through a calendar's view, I can prove to you why it was a human mistake made by an amateur astrologer in an astronomy magazine in the 40s. It is just plain human error that got picked up and amplified. So the hill I will stake my flag and defend until my dying breath is that it does not matter what month on the calendar something happened. Just, if you want your magic to be effective, paying attention to the astrological tides will get you more effect. Yes?
I know you mentioned system, but do you think about Vedic astrology? Because that's a quote-unquote accurate?
I am not an expert in that, but when I do dive into that, I find that these things are very complementary to each other, but I could not speak intelligently about the specifics of that. I'm sorry. So I am speaking from a Western astrology point of view right now. All right, we're also going to get into, after we figure out what makes a blue and a black moon, defining the cycles that go around that in a larger setting. They're not just little blips that happen on one day and then that's it. There's a very big thing that happens around those. We're going to talk about the zodiacal lunar pairings and the axes of consciousness. That's going to get us pretty deep into what we call astrological psychology. There's a larger meaning behind all of these tides. We're going to get into the shifting lunar leadership within pairings. And as far as I can tell, because I even debased myself enough to do an AI-aided search, I can't find anybody else on planet Earth talking about this subject. So I'm presenting even vocabulary words I've had to come up with myself, so I present those things for your consideration. Then we have to get into the 19-year metonic cycles. There's a much bigger cycle that's going on in all of this, and I did find out about that first from Evo. Thank you, Evo. He's the first one that clued me in also to the zodiacal pairings and all that psychology stuff. That's what came from this book for me. And then we get to the tides of shadow, which is the subject of this whole talk. So I'm going to fly through that first bit to try to get to that. There are black moon cycles that are like a larger octave above a monthly cycle. It's the same sort of holographic, it's the same idea, the same tides, but slightly larger, slightly bigger, slightly broader scope. They last 2 to 3 years. You can think of that like a grand month within the grand year of the metonic cycle, which is a lunisolar thing where basically 19 years worth of solar calendars hold a precise 235 lunations down to 2 hours. And that was figured out way back in ancient Greece. People have been using that for calendars a long time. So once we've done all that and we can start to look at the calendar of these black moon cycles like a large month and think, you know how the moon kind of makes you crazy at certain times, makes you sleepy at certain times. Now imagine that amplified but over a 2 to 3 year period, and it's not just you, it's all of human consciousness evolving.
That's right now, right?
Is
that right now?
Oh, it's always. But right now we are in a Virgo cycle. We're going to go all the way to the you are here. We're going to get there through a survey. Okay, so in Hermeticism, going way back to Alexandria, Egypt, it's an old philosophy informed by Plato and Pythagoras and all the teachings of the god Thoth in Egypt and Persia. There's so many things. They go to Hermetics for more details. consult my previously, all of that. But anyway, so the idea here is, why is the moon so important in our magic? Why is it the first thing we look to? And in witchcraft especially, which is my flavor, the moon is numero uno in like what you consider for magic and timing. But why is it so important? Well, in Hermetic philosophy, they saw that the divine mind, spirit, divinity, it came down through the star from the outer edges. It comes in through the stars and the structures of the stars and the mechanisms of our cosmos, and then down into the solar system. And there are spheres of influence which are governed by the 7 main planets and luminaries that they could see at the time. And so they call these the 7 celestial spheres. The moon is the closest sphere to Earth. It is the final tune-up of divine energy before it gets to Earth. And imagine it's kind of like, and I'm Gen X, but back in my day, we all had the Play-Doh Fun Factory. Did anybody else have a Play-Doh Fun Factory? Right. There were little die plates that you put in the thing, and then you put your squishy Play-Doh in, you went, and then out came a shape, right? The die, oh yeah. So even the ancient Hermeticists referred to the various celestial spheres as being like a die plate. Okay? The planets govern the various signs. So now, so when astrology says things like, oh, the moon is in Virgo, which is governed by Mercury. The die plate that is there is Virgo. It is Mercury. In comes spirit, descends into the world to become things and people and energies and moods. You squish it out. That's the flavor of the mood at that time. That's the flavor of the thing. So the moon is the final die plate. Where the moon is has the largest influence, which is why it's so very important to know what sign is the moon in right now when you're doing your magic. If you've ever tried to do a lunar spell but you didn't pay attention to that and you found it less effective than you hoped, that's probably why. There's a flavor to it, a tone. There's a vibe. There's literally a vibe. There's literally a vibe. So anyway, this is one of the old things, and I just applied some color to show you where you're at. You are here. And what we're talking about is this. But they saw the outer stars, the firmament, that's the zodiac stars, and so it kind of comes down in that order. All right. So what we're talking about here is auspicious timing. Auspicious is, what makes it important? What makes it effective right now? What kind of magic or ritual or whatever can we do and really tap into the juice of this moment? It's like being a surfer and knowing what times of day and at what beaches with what weather patterns make the best waves, right? So then you can surf that power. So we're determining that magical power that flows from the rhythm of natural cycles. The cosmos does not obey the dictates of popes, bankers, or government calendars. So we're forgetting that. Tides of magic flow from the relationship between the sun, the earth, the moon, and how that flows against the backdrop of the outer stars. Those are the die plates. What is auspicious is what affects the aspects. It's affected by the aspects of the zodiac that are illuminated at that time, not the month. And this little image here, this is my Wheel of the Year calendar. I do these every year. They're available for sale at my booth. It has every bit of auspicious timing for magic. The Sabbats, the moons, the eclipses, everything are all listed here. I do one every year. I've also got some left of the 26 calendar over there. So I just was using this as a pretty picture. But we have those available if you'd like them. All right, so what is auspicious? Part of what we need to define is why are the blue and the black moons important and what are they doing? What you need to know here, and I'm just illuminating the season of winter here in this picture, but it contains 3 signs. Every season contains 3 signs. Those signs, each season starts with a cardinal sign. It is peaked by a fixed sign, and it integrates, declines, and gets ready to change into the next season, and the mutable sign. That is the growth pattern of everything in the cosmos. Then as the sun journeys through that zodiac, the moon meets it in a sequence of oppositions and conjunctions that will reveal the deeper patterns of psychological balance at that time. And so each full moon, when it occurs, it will be in the opposite sign of the sun's current sign. So if you'll note here, for example, in Capricorn, when the moon is full, we call, well, in some calendars, I don't care what you call the moons, but I use the Llewellyn date book, these traditional Wiccan names. Cold moon is what I call it. It will be in Cancer. Cancer is the exact opposite sign on the other side of the wheel. However, when we get to the dark moon, that happens during that sign. So this is where's the sun, you know? It will be in the same sign. Why is that? The reason why the moon is dark, we can't see it. We are looking at its backside, the dark moon. And I do call it dark moon and not new moon. In magic, those are two different considerations. On calendars, even in the Llewellyn, which is date book, which irritates me to no end, they call the dark moon the new moon. That's an astronomy way of thinking about it. In magic, the new moon is 2 days later, after the moon's gotten just far enough away from the sun to show us that tiny little sliver, right real low on the horizon. At dusk, it shows up, it's new, it's a new baby for the first time. And in Vedic astrology, they definitely make that distinction. There's a whole different name and everything for it. They call that the Shiva moon when it shows back up. The other reason why we don't see a dark moon is because it sets at dusk and it rises at dawn. You'll see it during the day, but not at night. There's a reason it's dark. That's why I call it the dark moon. And that's when it's an exact conjunction to the sun. So if the sun's over here and I'm Earth, the dark moon is directly between us. When I can see the whole beautiful disk of the moon, that is because she is behind us on the opposite side of the wheel. And there's the sun over there, and I'm looking that way, and now I can see the full moon. So, opposition, conjunction. Okay? Now, that's what this is showing here. So you'll see there's a pairing, and I know there's all the phases. Every day of the month is a different tune-up of the phases. I recognize basically 9. 9 is the lunar number. When you delineate dark from new, you get 9 major phases. But in this situation, for this subject matter, let's just focus on the full and the dark moon. Full is a time when we're in opposition. It's going to be the working together of the sun's energy, going across, bouncing off the moon, tuning it up to the moon sign, then bouncing it back to us. So it's a combo. It's a combo of both sides. The lunar pairing of signs at the full moon. At the dark moon, would you like a chair? There's plenty of chairs up here. Come on up. Please come. It's fine. So when we have the dark moon, however, think about it as they're both in the same sign. It's not fighting each other. It's allowing us to fully marinate in one sign's energy, both on the conscious level, that's the sun, and the subconscious level, that's the moon. Now we can integrate such things together. So the dark moon kind of pulls the veil back and reveals in both our inner gut instinct and our conscious awareness of the things of that sign at that moment. There's no fight, there's no obfuscation, it's just open. And we can sit with that, and we can marinate in it, and we can allow it to integrate into us. That's the mutable part of the cycle. So we're going to focus on those two. So you note here in this month, there's 3 full moons, there's 1 for each sign, there's 3 dark moons, 1 for each sign. That's pretty average. All right, now we're going to take a little jump. Now imagine this is the zodiac wheel. There's 12 signs, but if you pair them the way we were just talking about with the full moon, now imagine there's like spokes on our wheel. The spokes connect the 2 signs on the opposite sides. This is where I really got into all this with Evo's book. Thank you, Evo. So if you want more, way more, that's the book for you. All right, so the signs are connected. They form 6 great axes across the zodiacal wheel. The axes are areas of consciousness that balance each other. They form a polarity And in polarity, we talk about how it's really just different degrees of the same thing, the same concept, but they look like opposites, but they're actually just degrees of change between the same idea. So then they are paired across the wheel. That is important because that's the consciousness that we are exploring at that time. When you're at the full moon, you've got the full range. When you're at the dark moon, you get to focus on one side of it. But if you really focus on that in your magic and your rituals, like this is the vibe of the time. If I'm a surfer, this is the wave. Do you want to surf that wave at that time? Well, that's the direction the wave is going. That's the flavor of the wave, the temperature of the wave. You cannot change that that's the nature of the wave. To ignore it is kind of sad, to not be aware of it. If you're trying to do magic that is wholly different than that vibe, you're just going to come up flat. So knowing about it helps. Here we are. All right, so each one of these balances instinct with reflection, desire with responsibility, individuality with relationship. In the book, the Lunar Witchcraft book, I name them the paths and all this. This is more than this workshop talks about, but it's really the subject of the book. I call it the beacon system, because for each of those paths, if you consider this, in psychology they would call this, for example, between Pisces and Virgo, they would call this the axis of service. But for magic, I call it the path of nourishment. How is your service nourishing? In Virgo, the body and the individual, and in Pisces, the whole and the community on a spiritual level. So that's how I do it in the book, but that's not what this is about today. So we're just going to move on. The 12 zodiac signs form these 6 axes of consciousness. This is their pairing across the wheel. We begin at Aries. Axis of identity. Note that both of these signs in each column, they will both be cardinal. And they will both have the same, well, in the old magic they called it gender. But we're talking about in what vibe of, what mode of that waveform does that element involve? Is it projective or is it receptive? So we don't really talk about it like gender anymore. Those are old ideas, but they're projective. Aries is fire, Libra is air. The first 6 signs are the primal or the middle self, very animal instinct, like the baby fresh out of the womb, brand new human kind of, you got to figure out how to be an individual. And then from the last 6, we get more into the personal and interpersonal, a little more emotionally mature kind of ideas for, okay, I am an individual, but how do I interact with you? And so that's how they're paired. I need to take care of me, but I also need to take care of my place within the greater whole. Yes, ma'am.
So some people believe that when you're reading, you don't need your sun sign or your rising. Does any of this subscribe to that?
We are not really talking about natal chart stuff. That's another layer. Just think about this as more like the general die plates of the cosmos. How we individually squirt through the die plate at the moment of our birth is affected by all of that. I mean, the Play-Doh thing. Yes, that is important in the greater mix of things, but we're talking about it from a more generalized thing today.
Okay, so don't think about any of that. Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about that right this minute. We're going outside of that a minute. It does apply, of course, later on a very personal way, but that's not really what we're talking about today. So we're just going to get it from a big concept right now. All right. Now note also here that the zodiac signs, they are always fire, air. Then next month, earth, water. Then next month, air, fire. Then next month, water, earth. Then next month. You see what I'm getting at? There's the pairings. There's receptive, more old-fashioned feminine elements, and then the masculine elements. And the feminine, and the masculine. And there's a waveform. God is time, God, time, and we just back and forth. They'll also always be cardinal at the same time, fixed at the same time, mutable at the same time. So there's a real vibe going on there. That's the energy of that moment. That's the axes. So, what's this about human consciousness? In this way, looking at it this way, the lunar year becomes more than a series of emotional moods. It becomes a cycle of initiation through which our awareness evolves. Each lunation invites us to work consciously with the polarity highlighted by the sun and moon, and it can guide the evolution of our awareness through a repeating cycle of challenge, balance, and then integration. Now my concept of lunar leadership. This is the word that I'm like, I can't find anybody anywhere talking about this. But when I read the things from Evo in this book, I started asking different questions, and I went down a rabbit hole. Now I'm just going to admit to you, you probably already pegged me for this, but I'm a little spicy. You might have noticed. And everything about my chart, my rising and all, my whole thing is led by Virgo, led by Mercury, and then all the outer planets are in air signs. So I get posed an intellectual query, conundrum. This does not make sense to me, must define. And so in I go. My sun is in Pisces. I was born at one of the axes at a full moon where the sun was in Pisces and the moon was cresting full in Virgo. So I got it bad. But that is how it affected me.
I'm a Virgo sun as well, and my chart is just earth and fire, so, you know.
It'll be a special blend for everybody. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, but then every zodiacal pairing, it will begin either with the dark moon first in the pairing. Mind you, it's always dark, full, dark, full, dark, full, dark, full. But which sign is it in? This is what we're questioning. And within the pairing, which one of those came first? It will either be the dark moon first, which means during that lunation we lead with the inner work, the shadow, the reflection, the preparation, or it leads with the full moon first, which means we begin the lunation with that illumination, with relationship, with expression, with manifestation. And as I was laying out my lunar calendars for the book, for every year I do this, I noticed that some years every zodiacal pairing began with the dark moon, and then other years they began with the full moon. But I didn't quite understand why, so I started to chart it out using all these astrological ephemeris data stuff. I charted it all the way back to 1995 and all the way ahead to 2069 and so far, and I started to notice patterns. So, everybody's got a superpower. We all come into the world with a superpower. Neurospicy people, the superpowers are a little bit obvious. Mine is, you know how we are. Mine is pattern recognition. You need somebody to come in and be like, what the hell is the pattern going on in this data set? I'm your girl. But because my sun is in Pisces, I need to draw a pretty picture of it first. So I drew lots of pictures so I could understand it. All right, so just talking about a lunation. This is your intro stuff. A lunation, otherwise known as a synodic month, is calculated from dark moon to dark moon, or what astronomers would call new moon to new moon. We're talking about the exact conjunction to the exact conjunction. In the middle will be a full moon, and it waxes from nothing to fullness, and then it wanes from fullness down to darkness again, and then you start again. That's roughly 29 and a half days. In this graphic, let's just imagine that we're in the lunation, the first of the pairings, where the full moon is in Aries. Well, no, it's not the first one. The full moon would mean it was on the flip side of the year in Libra. Let's just imagine where the sun's in Libra, the full moon will crest in Aries, the dark moon will be in Libra. Now, which one came first in the pairing? Some years, and the oval could be the lunation. This is a full moon-led lunar pairing lunation. It's going to wax up to the full moon in Aries. It's going to wane down to the dark moon in Libra. That's the pairing, right? Other years, the dark moon comes first in the pairing. The dark moon in Libra is over there. The full moon is here. So now that's the dark moon-led pairing. The moon teaches more than monthly cycles. What came about is a question of what if there are larger lunar seasons that shape the emotional climate of society for years at a time. And in lunar witchcraft, I began wondering whether these monthly tides might belong to something even larger. Could there be lunar seasons that last years instead of weeks? Which got me to looking at the Metonic cycle. I know this feels like I'm diverting back and forth, and what the hell. Just imagine that there's a in the pairing, we have to consider which one comes first. Now, we're talking about this other thing, the Metonic cycle. It's a lunisolar, or solely lunar, depending on your preference, calendar that came from an ancient astronomical system. It's 235 lunar months, or lunations. It lasts 19 solar years exactly. It's been known since ancient Greece, and the mathematician Meton in 432 BCE. What he figured out is that the lunar phases will return to nearly the exact same calendar dates every 19 years, within a 2-hour discrepancy. They are marked as the first dark moon in Capricorn, falling on January 1st. They called that the golden year. It's not really important to this discussion, but that's what they called it. And then, so basically they were like, how many solar years, which solar years are winter solstice to winter solstice. Think of winter solstice as the solar equivalent of a dark moon, smallest. And the moon, and the lunation is, again, the smallest to the smallest, the year smallest to the smallest. So when do these align? And the dark, so they tracked it from when does the first dark moon in Capricorn, which is the first dark moon after the winter solstice, when does that happen on January 1st? And they call that the golden year, and then they count. 19 years later, it'll come back to it again, okay? Within this larger cycle, and this is where the pattern thing happened, within this larger cycle, there's a repeating pattern of years with blue and black moons. The standard years only have 12 each. And blue and black moons become the hinge points that reverse lunar leadership for the years that follow. That's what changes whether it comes first or later. So now that we've said all that, how do we define those things? What makes a blue moon? When a spare, full, or dark moon appears inside one of those patterned cycles, it is very noticeable. It is auspicious. That extra lunar event is the bonus moon of that year, which makes it a witch's dozen. What's a witch's dozen? 13. Why are there 13 people in a coven? Okay, it's very auspicious. A blue moon, by this system, is the second full moon in a sign, which makes it the 13th full moon of that year. So I'm showing you 2027. Next year, we have a blue moon. And I was just trying to show here, so this is gonna happen when the sun is in Taurus. We're gonna have a flower moon just as soon as the sun enters Taurus. And then that's on April 20th next year. And then there is another one. So the flower moon is always in Scorpio. That's the opposite sign of the wheel to Taurus. The blue moon is it's so close to when we almost get into Gemini. But nope, she's a Taurus. She's another Taurus sun, Scorpio moon. So we get a blue moon. This makes this a lunar triad, not a pairing. The dark moon in the middle becomes that hinge point, which flips the order of leadership. So on 5/6, and this happens to be the day my daughter's going to graduate from college. Hallelujah. Long journey, that one. Anyway, next year we get a blue moon. Okay. Now, what makes a black moon? This is an example of the linear version. At the bottom of here, I got a linear version also. This is from last year. Last year we had a black moon. That is the second dark moon in a sign, making it the 13th dark moon that year. And notice, just looking at this linearly, going along, dark moons are down here, full moons are up here. We were dark moon led coming out of 2024. And I do the pairings like this to show you which comes first. We get to the harvest full moon here in Virgo last year. We had 2 Virgo dark moons, which made the second one the black moon, which changes the order of leadership. The full moon in the middle becomes the hinge point to flip the leadership. This one flips it, and it goes the other direction. Now you see why the calendar, there's 2 in a month, makes no freaking sense. There's a lot going on by the other definition of what makes these things. And the astronomer who was writing for Sky and Telescope in 1942, he didn't know about magic, he didn't know about anything, he didn't care. And plus he got it wrong anyway. No, he was referring to a year saying that there were 2 moons some year, and there wasn't even 2 moons in a month that year either. He got it all freaking wrong. He was just wrong. Okay.
Your paper just said that.
I have. Oh, you can find it. So if you go to the card I've sent everybody, I write for Patheos, and years ago, like 8 years ago, I wrote all about it. I have been writing about it now on my Substack for years. This is the hill I will scream from the top of till the day I die. But I have written whole things. All of that is laid out, and it's also in the new book coming out. But yeah, I've got blogs on it. Just Heron Michelle Blue Moon in a search. You will find it. It's there. Okay, so blue and black moons do more than simply add an extra lunar magic opportunity. They also change which phase leads the emotional work of the years that follow. And I call this concept lunar leadership. So I'm going to go through this real quick. This is just the linear view. These are illustrations I actually made for the new book. A standard year is just when there's 12 of each. They can either be full moon or dark moon led. That's not really the issue. The question on what I call standard is just, is it, which comes first? So all across the year, that was 22. There's a blue moon year. You see that heart hinge in the middle. This is 24. It switched the order. Here is 25. That's that black moon we saw a minute ago. Heart's now upside down. It switches the order. All right, now before we get there, I probably should add a slide to this. I tracked this over all the metonic cycles. A blue moon happens every 2.5 years. A black moon happens every 2.5 years. It's not exactly precise. It's squidgy, but roughly 2.5 years. Within the metonic order of 19 cycles, it goes like this: standard, blue, black, blue; standard, black, blue, black; standard, blue, black, blue; standard, blue, black, and then repeats. Big patterns. How did I figure that out? I tracked 4 million data points, and then I colored them with a blue highlighter or a gray, and I looked at how they flowed. And I do have all those charts in the new book, but we're not going to get into that right now. Okay, so the larger black moon cycle, we finally arrived at the subject of this workshop. What time is it?
About 11:15. It's 11:10.
Okay. Now imagine the larger black moon cycle would last 24 to 35 lunations. It's like a big grand month. Each one of those is one of those little ones that I had in the other slide. The black moon, just like a dark moon, shifts us to full moon led lunations. We're leading with the flow. So it's kind of a big old flow. Up to the blue moon, which shifts us back to dark moon led, which is like a big old wane. And it lasts like 14 to 19 lunations here, 14 to 19 or something like that, lunations there, to the next black moon. This is like the grand month. And whatever sign this first one is, flavors the tide of human consciousness for the next 2.5 years. Or so. So that's what the big grand months are. And the metonic cycle could be like a grand year. So that's going to flavor the mood of the cycle. I'm moving on. What we're going to do here real quick is we're going to take a jog through some history. You could call this archetypal historiography. It's when you look backwards and you go, hey, what happened during that time that might have indicated this thing? It's very squidgy. The causation and correlation are not the same thing. I'm not saying that where the moon was is what made things happen, but if all of humanity is affected in this way in your consciousness, things like memes, things like ideas, religious movements, whatever, political movements, what surges in what captures the human imagination and we all rally around, that's the kind of thing you might, if you're all in the same mood, is this sort of a vibe that flows larger. Okay, so I made this pretty picture. Imagine this is a timeline, but it's in a spiral because it's a very long timeline. It wouldn't fit on one picture. I drew this. So we have over here on the side, the sign with an just to remember that the axis with that first keyword is the axis, but which pole that is. So I tracked all the way back to 1995. This whole thing flows Widdershins. Widdershins basically means moonwise. The moon goes counterclockwise. That's why it's flowing that way. So it's opposite the clock, and I don't know, it's kind of hard to see, but I have put the dates for each of the full moons next to it. If you start at 95 and work your way out, I've tracked it all the way to 69 so far. And these are, I colored it by the element and put what sign or what mood leads that time. So now let's get into it. Looking backward. And like I said, all of these slides are going to be available to you for download. But these are the dates and then also the length of how many lunations was for each one. Let's start way back at the beginning. I wanted to go back even further than I did in the book because, well, I was roughly becoming an adult in 1995. I don't know how old y'all are, but I wanted us to be able to look back at the things and just kind of get a flavor, remember some things that were happening. From November of 95 to August of 98, we were in a Scorpio cycle. That axis is about possession, but it's the feeling side of it. Feelings, the watery side of the axis of possession. So archetypal themes of Scorpio are intimacy, fear, transformation, hidden powers, mortality. When my first astrology teacher said, Scorpio, think of 3 key words: death, sex, and the occult. Right? Okay. So what was happening during that time? Where were y'all in 95 to 98? Just think back. Here's some things that happened. Princess Diana's death became a global experience. There was a whole lot of public grief. All kinds of questions came up about how we should be acting and treating people. Heaven's Gate cult mass suicide happened.
The Kool-Aid one?
No, it wasn't. That was Jones. You know, but I am going to go back and look now that you said that. And did that happen in a previous Scorpio one? I don't know. But no, this was Heaven's Gate. But it was a big deal. And we all started thinking about transformation and death. And the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa was going with Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela, basically saying you got to be accountable for all these deaths, and we're not going to let you do that shit anymore. You got to face your shadow. Music and culture. So the late 90s, we would transition into post-grunge, alternative metal, industrial rock, goth revival, darker electronic music. Kurt Cobain had just committed suicide. The grunge era transitioned into this. 9 Inch Nails, my favorite. Marilyn Manson, Garbage, Radiohead, a whole lot of things. The movie Seven. You want to see an old movie about Scorpio stuff? But The Craft came out.
And Charmed did too. And Charmed did too.
And Charmed? Suddenly, witchcraft is in the mainstream. I don't know when y'all came to witchcraft, but I came right around then. Okay, then we had a Leo black moon cycle. And I got a Leo front and center here. It'll tell you all about the axis of ego. And in this case, it's the individual. No, these are important things. There's no bad signs. They're all good. They're all what they need. The individual, warmth, creativity, personality. These are important things. Identity, self-expression, leadership, pride, the lion. It's all important. So they formed the next things. It's questions like, how do I shine as my authentic self without losing sight of the people around me? Okay, now what was going on? Well, the dot-com boom celebrated entrepreneurship, innovation, the promise of individual ambition. This is, mind you, we're talking about 98 to 2001 now. The Kosovo War raised global questions about leadership and when do we intervene in someone else's sovereign territory. Vladimir Putin's rise to power marked an emergence of a new era of personality-driven leadership. Cult of personality, big deal. The International Space Station welcomed its first permanent crew, but it was all about confidence and vision and aspiration to reach beyond the boundaries of Earth. Very Leo. Music. This is how I looked at things. I'm like, what was popular? What was happening? You know, music and movies, that's a good indicator of what we like as a larger group of people. Okay. From 90 to 01, Western culture becomes obsessed with being seen. We have themes where all the individual matters. It was optimistic, performative, glamorous, self-confident. It was the dawn of celebrity culture. Britney Spears, all the little Pop-Tarts came along. Eminem, Latin pop was very big with Ricky Martin and Jennifer Lopez, etc. Reality television became a thing for the first time ever. Survivor, Big Brother. The big movies that won awards at that time were American Beauty, Fight Club, Gladiator, Aaron Brockovich. We could get way into those things, but anyway, those were big at the time, and they all speak to Leo ideas.
Patriot.
Lots of things, yes. Then there's the Cancer Black Moon. Now we've had 3 Cancer cycles during this time. We're going to look at how they progress later. So that's the axis of security and the pole of home life versus public life. So the deeper questions of what must be protected, nurtured, carried safely, these were themes at that time. Some of the global events. September 11th, 2001, we are attacked on our homeland. It shattered the world's sense of safety and security. It reshaped ideas of home, heroism, and national identity. Therefore, the Homeland Security Department was created. The Iraq War, it was all kinds of concerns about our protection then. So security, safety, how do we feel safe? Families and communities gathered around grief and patriotism. A lot of patriotic music emerged after that. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou's soundtrack was the #1. But think about it, it's American history, it's, I don't know. And about returning home. American Idol premiered in 2001. So it's basically the living room became this gathering place. Harry Potter became a cultural phenomenon. How does that start? His mama dies. And all of that about finding family.
Harvard is his real name.
Exactly. Finding Nemo. Oh no, my kid is lost. How do we all get home? Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, where fellowship and family and doing the right thing and keeping us all safe. So again and again, culture told stories about threatened homes, chosen families, vulnerable minds and bodies, and the cooperation that carries us safely through dark times. Then we get into an Aries cycle. This was 04 to 06. Whenever we hit an Aries cycle ruled by Mars, we tend to start wars and things of that nature. It becomes very aggressive. It becomes very identity driven. This is the new baby Aries coming in and going, who am I? I am this. You know, this is what the Aries says. So identity and courage and initiative, etc. Self-determination. So there's all kinds of things that happened. I'll just look at this. There were lots of debates over the Iraq War. Hurricane Katrina. I had a brand new baby at that time. There was a lot of things going on for me. The London bombings. There was all kinds of things that were about how do we assert our identity? How do we do this safely? How do we defend? Arts and culture. That's when Facebook expanded beyond college campuses. What is Facebook but saying, here I am, and then interacting with other people. Podcasting emerged, telling our stories. Independent voices. Green Day's American Idiot became the defining protest album. Brokeback Mountain swept the awards. Opened identity, being your authentic self. Okay, then we had a Virgo Black Moon cycle. Virgo, earth sign, axis of service. This is to the refinement side. If you're in Hermetics, you know the Baphomet and the Solve at Coagula. Solve breaks everything down into their constituent parts and looks at everything, refines it, it puts it in little boxes, it breaks it down to its purest form. Pisces is the put it all back together, Coagula, one big human thing, all the feelings and emotions. So we've got to break it down to small parts, put it all back together into the big thing. This is the small parts refinement, about service, discernment, refinement, healing, stewardship. It's very earthy. All right, what was going on? Well, the global financial crisis from 07 to 09 exposed the consequences of poorly managed financial systems and demanded accountability. The Great Recession then forced millions of us to simplify, rebuild, refine, make smaller. Barack Obama's election in 08 inspired a renewed emphasis on public service and civic responsibility. It was very pragmatic hope. Then there was the H1N1 swine flu. I mean, Virgo is very much about like nursing and health and hygiene and all this. And suddenly we're all like, oh, disease. Innovation and technology. The iPhone was introduced in 07. Everyday communication. It went right into your pocket. Cloud computing, web-based collaboration. The App Store launched, making it very easy. Yes?
No, just a little anecdote. I don't remember yesterday I was telling about my sister who's a registered nurse. She's a Virgo, and she literally started
Yeah.
To this day, I call her Cleaver.
Right. Okay, culture spelled wrong. Sorry. Radiohead released In Rainbows. What does that matter? Well, they did it with a thing that was new where it was groundbreaking, pay what you want. Right? That's just the different thing. It challenged traditional ideas of artistic value and relationship, but it broke it down a little bit. Wall-E inspired audiences with themes of stewardship and environmental care. Slumdog Millionaire won the Academy Award. Very Virgo things. Okay, moving on. Cancer. Now we're back at Cancer again. We have another Cancer. Again, it's security and home life, home, family, motherhood, security, belonging, nurturing, the ocean. Okay. Now that we've survived that first one, how do we take care of one another? World events. So after the recession, we have this whole global care and recovery, especially around the home and ocean. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill threatened the ocean, but it awakened widespread concern for environmental stewardship, especially protecting the ocean itself. Then there was the earthquake, tsunami, and the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster, which started to poison the ocean. And but what it inspired was humanitarian relief, and we all have to work together to make sure this doesn't happen again, protect the environment. And New York passed the Marriage Equality Act. There was a lot of states doing this, but because New York did it, it tripped off into we can now have home and family and marriage for lots more people, and it was a defining moment in that fight. But Cancer, Etsy and homemade, the whole Etsy thing came about. Handmade movement, craftsmanship, homemaking, do-it-yourself home renovation and HGTV programming, huge. Natural parenting movements gained mainstream attention, including breastfeeding advocacy again, baby wearing, attachment parenting, holistic family wellness became huge during that time. Then Airbnb suddenly was a thing. We are now making our actual homes available to other people. And TV shows focused on the family were flourishing. Things that were big at that time were Modern Family, Parenthood, even Downton Abbey. But they were all Cancer themes, right? Tradition and motherhood. Then we got into a Gemini cycle. So this is 12 to 15. So it's the axis of information. This is the first time we've experienced this one. Information and knowledge gathering. Themes of curiosity, communication, information, connectivity, perspective. What do I know? How do I know it? How do I communicate it? Okay. Edward Snowden. NSA disclosures ignited worldwide debate over surveillance, privacy, who controls information. There's a lot of things. ISIS rose to prominence using social media to recruit people. The West African Ebola epidemic, it was a question of what do we know, when do we know it, how do we tell people? There was just lots of things, especially about fear and misinformation became an issue.
The Russian thing happened with the Olympics.
Yes, lots of things, so many things. There was more than will fit on a slide. House of Cards, not so much the show itself, but it helped establish streaming television as a major cultural force. There had been other shows that didn't have a lot of traction. Suddenly, streaming media became a big deal. Podcasting entered the cultural mainstream. Reddit, big discussion communities. Selfie was the Oxford Dictionary word of the year. But information and all of that, I don't know. Ice Bucket Challenge was a big deal that time. It demonstrated how ideas could spread virally through digital networks and raise global awareness. I don't know. These are just things I chose. Yes?
Does it make sense that the whole hubbub about like 2012 and which was winter solstice, that was supposed to, that whole big thing and like.
It was a big deal back then.
It was a huge deal.
Honestly, I do think that the world ended and a new one was, began. Our perspective on our information about the world changed. Yes, it was a big deal. So I know we're running, and if anybody's got to go, you go ahead and go. But Aquarius, Black Moon cycle, we're so almost there. I want to get to the you are here before we stop. So 15 to 17, axis of ego, but from the flip side, this is collective. How do we take care of everybody? The European refugee crisis, Paris Climate Agreement, Brexit, the first Trump election, rapid growth of Black Lives Matter movement in response, Hamilton, it was a whole lot of like, wait a minute, more diverse casting. What does nationhood actually mean? Crowdfunding's got to be big. Pokemon Go. That saved my store. Suddenly there were people hovering around outside my store like, and I had all sort of business again. The Women's March, huge. I was there with my 13-year-old daughter, big times. Okay, then we got back into another Leo Black Moon, opposite from Aquarius, but straight over. So Aquarius is like, how do we organize as a collective? Leo would ask, but who gets the microphone? The Great American Eclipse started it off. The Me Too movement got going. Greta Thunberg's school climate strike started. COVID-19. What is that? Arts and culture. This is when TikTok exploded. The Black Panther movie became a global, very about heroic leadership, right? Marie Kondo started asking us, what sparks joy? Mr. Beast, native of my town where I live, Greenville, North Carolina. Mr. Beast, cult of personality. How can you become a mega global celebrity with more money than God, and he lives in my town? But from YouTube, that's when he got big. Now we're in Cancer again. It's the third one. So the first one asked how it showed us how fragile home can be. The second one asked us how we're going to take care of each other after a crisis. This one has us redefining security at home while quarantined inside it. When we were all told to stay home for years, it was a cancer cycle.
In more ways than one.
Yep. Transformed the home into sanctuary, workplace, classroom, refuge. It all was at home, right? Vaccination campaigns. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Cancer's all about motherhood, and that was definitely part of it. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother died. Okay, arts and cultures. Remote work, Zoom, everything. Home now. Baking, gardening, home cooking, DIY, all at home now. Streamlining entertainment, all at home. Pets, so many pets were adopted during that time. Companionship, comfort at home. Encanto was a major movie, and that's all about generational stuff and home and motherhood and family. So let's do some comparisons real quick. So in 2001, home can be threatened. 2009, how do we take care of each other? 2020, we discovered that home wasn't merely where we lived, it became where we worked, worshiped, learned, celebrated, everything. So there's this elegant arc. If you notice the Black Moon Cycle framework, it's insightful. It shows that recurring archetypes invite recurring human questions. They're answered differently for each generation, but we get slightly more evolved as we go. We had another Aries cycle from 23 to 25. Generative AI, questions of identity and personhood. Affirmative action got ended, identity, personhood, worth. The Israel-Hamas war began, and we get another Trump presidency. Debates over national identity, leadership, liberty, whole thing. Barbie. Transgender rights issues, it blew up. That's also about identity, personal autonomy, self-definition. Almost every major public conversation becomes about identity. AI, gender, race, university, free speech, everything. So, comparisons. The first one we studied here, Facebook, YouTube, all of that, podcasting. Second one, it was about conviction. What do I believe? What am I willing to defend? What makes me human? The archetype itself has matured. The first one says I am, and then we're like, okay, but who do we want to become? What do we stand for? You are here! Okay, we're finally there. We're now in a Virgo cycle. That is service again and refinement. It started in September of 25. It will go until 28, July 21st to 28. Back here, so it's all about adapting to AI, emphasizing discernment. What can you trust? What is real? Extreme weather and climate resilience efforts are present. There's growing concern over our mental health, loneliness, burnout. Public debates are focusing on institutional trust and accountability. I mean, we're right in the middle of it. It's hard to say yet, but we're back in a Virgo cycle. Personal wellness, taking care of yourself. Issues around health care access is big right now. Mindful living movements are big. There's a big interest, again, in gardening and local food and sustainable living. There's all kinds of things going on. So unlike in previous examples, this cycle is still unfolding, but we're trying to learn to recognize these cycles, and then perhaps when they come and they dawn in the future, know best what to expect and how to prepare, how to use that. So these larger black moon cycles, they can't tell us exactly what will happen, but they will reveal the emotional ties within which history is likely to unfold. And like sailors regarding, they can read the weather, or farmers watching the seasons, we don't control these things, but we can prepare ourselves to navigate them with greater wisdom and humility and compassion. And so the purpose of lunar magic is to become the kind of sailor who can navigate any of these seas. I would say, if we had not run out of time, we were going to look to the future and try to do some prognostication. I will tell you that the whole thing here unfolds. These are all the rest of the shadows, 28 to 69, with the dates and things. There's some weirdness coming up. I've written about it extensively in my various blogs over the years if you want more information. And there's some things where I'm like, what the hell's going on with this Libra cycle that only lasts like 4.5 months, coming up in 1952. I hope to be alive. We'll all convene at, what is that, Mystic South, like 38, and we'll discuss what happens. But the gifts. And this is an image that I created. This image of Gaia is available. Well, there's one like it available in my shop if you like it. But we're not trying to predict the future, really. It's not like that. But we can spiral into more refined beings. That's basically the next gen. All right. Well, I hope to see you guys at the booth. I am doing a book signing immediately now. I do have plenty of these and the calendars, and I'll be back at the Sojo booth. My book signing slot is between 12:30 and 2:30 today, and I know that we've got some great other authors who will be sitting with me, like JR and others. So thank you, everyone. If you're interested in my online course, I have flyers. Oh, freeze it. Well.